After a weekend where everyone was talking about how amazing Wyatt Langford looked, Evan Carter on Tuesday said, hey, I'm a pretty darn good prospect too. Talk about what he can do for this Rangers team that they haven't had in so long. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 10 seasons, including all 5 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into Evan Carter's amazing day on Tuesday, a little bit about some bullpen arms that are turning heads in camp and why this is just the new normal for Adolis Garcia, what he did last year. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, this weekend, it was all about the Wyatt Langford show. He made some adjustments to his batting stance. He was keeping his hands a little bit too high. One of the things that he said that he adjusted after a 0 for 10 start to spring training, but Wyatt Langford got back on track, had 3 home runs in the span of 2 days, and Evan Carter said, oh, look at that 22-year-old rookie. I'm the 21-year-old rookie. And before Wyatt Langford was turning heads this spring, Evan Carter was turning heads all across Major League Baseball. Look at this 21-year-old kid. Look what he's doing in his first taste of Major League Baseball in a run to and through the World Series, hitting third on a World Series champion team. The kid was incredibly impressive, but as is the case with many things, the new flavor of the month, Wyatt Langford, turned heads. He was something that the Rangers that fans had not seen before at the Major League level. So, of course, it was natural to be excited about Wyatt Langford. But the good news is, for Rangers fans, you don't have to choose a favorite son. You don't have to choose which one you like better, because both of these guys are on your team. Both of these super duper prospects are going to be on the Texas Rangers for years and years and years to come. Isn't that absolutely astounding? They're going to be hitting right next to each other in the order, or at least in the same batting order for many years, and they're going to be playing probably next to each other in the outfield. Probably not this year. We'll see a lot of Evan Carter in left field, but on Tuesday, he had an absolutely phenomenal day. He played for about 4 innings, and in those first 2 innings, all he did was hit a leadoff home run off of Seattle starter Logan Gilbert, who was pulled later that inning. But the good thing about spring training is that you can pull your starter if he's struggling in an inning and then bring him back the next inning. And that's what the Mariners did. They brought Logan Gilbert back and said, okay, well, after giving up a couple of runs in that first inning, let's let somebody else get him out of it. He comes in, loads the bases for Evan Carter, and Mr. Carter hits a grand slam, his second home run in as many innings. Then later on, in the bottom of the second inning, he robbed a home run in left field. The kid is just absolutely astounding how good he is at such a young age. And yes, spring training stats don't matter, but the results do. And seeing him hit a baseball that far off of Logan Gilbert, not just once, but twice, man, it gives you so much hope for what the future is with this kid. He's going to be playing left field for the Rangers, and left field, to be putting it mildly, for the Rangers has been an absolute black hole for the last decade. I went back through Baseball Reference and it lists when it's listing on the page who played what position. It always goes with the guy who played the most games at said position. So for the last 10 seasons, from 2014 to 2023, I went and looked at who played the most games in left field over the past 10 years. And this list is not encouraging. It kind of shows you how much of a revolving door, and not a good kind of revolving door, a bunch of one-year studs. No, it's been an absolute mess the last decade. 2023 in left field, we had Travis Jankowski. Year before, 2022, Bubba Thompson. The year before that, we had Willie Calhoun. And in the pandemic-shortened season of 2020, it was Nick Solak, the next chosen son, that was definitely going to pan out. And definitely don't super regret that Pete Fairbanks trade and hate it to this day. It's fine. In 2019, we have the only repeat entry on this list. It was Willie Calhoun, who played in, I believe, less than 80 games that season. 2018, we had the one actual good season from a left fielder. That was Joey Gallo, the high water mark for a left fielder the last decade. A 2.4 Baseball Reference 4 season. That's the high water mark, and it's not particularly close of who else came up close to that. In 2017, we had Delino DeShields. 2016, Ryan Rua. 2015, I guarantee you will not guess who had the most games in left field for the Rangers in 2015. I'll give you a second. If you said Josh Hamilton, you're a liar, or you have a photographic memory, because that's who led the Rangers in left field games in 2015. And then in the disaster year of 2014, we had Shin-Soo Choo, who was fine. So that's the list of left fielders in Texas the last decade. It has been a long, long road. And the year before that, if you wanted to go the year before that, it was David Murphy. And that was the closest thing to stability in left field that the Rangers had in the past, 15 years or so? And that was not a lot of stability. This has been a turnstile of a position, and the Rangers, while it might end up being Evan Carter as the primary left fielder this year and then Wyatt Langford next year, one of those two guys is going to stick there for years and years to come. And no matter which one of those guys is playing out there in left field, they're both going to be pretty darn good. It is a position that is not the most glorified position. There's not usually a whole lot of guys who are left fielders that are stars in this game. I mean, the only left fielders that are stars at this point, Yordan Alvarez, but he's more of a DH at this point. I mean, he played a lot of left field last year, but there's not a whole lot of left field stars in this game. And with your Texas Rangers, they got two kids in their early 20s that are going to be absolute stars out there in left field. Whether it's Evan Carter, whether it's Wyatt Langford, I mean, both of those kids are astoundingly good, and they are here for a long, long time. The future in Texas is so incredibly bright. And by the way, in the quick turnaround rebuild, the Rangers were ahead of schedule year one of actually being good. Last year, the beginning of the year, the thought was, okay, we're just coming out of being absolutely terrible for 2 years, really just absolutely in the tank. 3 years, actually, since 2020. And this is the first year we're going to be scrappy. We're going to, fight for a division title. Maybe we'll fight for a wild card spot and just get our first taste of year one of Bruce Bochy and everything. And all they did was win the whole frickin' thing. So now the standard is set. And it's hard to repeat as champions. No one's done it this century. Actually, I believe maybe the Yankees did. And nope. I don't think they've done it this century. I think it is 99 or 98 to 2000 was the last time any team repeated. So that World Series hangover is real. And how do you fight that? Oh, you add a full season of two super prospects that are going to be two of the best rookies in all of Major League Baseball, who are going to be fighting for Rookie of the Year votes from day one, who are both outfielders, who are both insane, because that's the only place in your lineup you could add anywhere to this team is, let's add a little bit in left field and at DH, because Mitch Garver walked in, and left field last year was mostly Travis Jankowski / Robbie Grossman, which World Series champs, heroes forever. But Evan Carter is a bit of an upgrade from those two. I mean, this left field hole has been so pronounced for such a long time. And yeah, other teams will have some rotation in left field, but just getting absolutely zero production out of left field for the past decade, to the point where, I mean, there have been so many guys who have played left field over the past 10 seasons, not just the guys who've been the primary starter, but just people out there. We've seen Mike Napoli out in left field for somehow multiple games in the last decade. That's how rough a stretch it's been for your Texas Rangers in left field. But no more. The Rangers have not one, but two absolute bona fide studs to put out there in left field. And even if God forbid the worst should happen and both of them get hurt, I think the Rangers would just put Ezekiel Duran out there in left field as your everyday guy. Or maybe it's Josh Smith, but both of those guys are perfectly capable as your, third and fourth options out there in left field. Actually, it'd probably be Travis Jankowski because that's what he's on the roster to be. But still, we saw how that was last year as your primary left fielder, Travis Jankowski. That's a World Series winning team. And all you're going to do is bump that up with two guys with absolutely immense potential at such a young age that are ready to not just come into this team and contribute in a small way. They are ready to absolutely take the league by storm. The future of this team is so bright. The future of left field is so bright. And my God, I love watching Evan Carter play baseball. And it's good for me because he's going to be here for a long, long time. Coming up, we're going to talk about a few bullpen arms that are really turning heads in camp and about Adolis Garcia, why his breakout year was no joke, and it is just a sign of things to come for El Bombi. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on PrizePicks. It's America's #1 fantasy sports app. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on the action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second, that player projection won't count against you, and the rest of your entry stays live. You can test your skills, pick more or less on 4 different categories of stats, points, assists, rebounds, or if you're wanting to go NHL, they've got all kinds of different categories there as well. It is the best way to get in on the action of daily fantasy sports. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download that app today and use that code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. Shout out to the everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be back bright and early talking with a member of Baseball Prospectus about their Rangers season preview and how they are very, very skeptical about the Rangers' chances of keeping that starting rotation healthy and therefore getting to the playoffs. Should be an interesting conversation that I'll be recording later today. Now, the Rangers have already made their first cuts. This happened yesterday. The first guys are already being sent back to minor league camp, and not a whole lot of surprises there on guys who are already getting sent back. Dustin Harris was optioned to AAA Round Rock. Catcher Liam Hicks and Matt Watley were both sent down to minor league camp. Same with infielder Abimelec Ortiz and Aaron Zavala. Hope to see a little bit more from Abimelec Ortiz. It was good for him to get his first invite to big league spring training. He had a great breakout year last year, looked amazing in the Arizona Fall League, but unsurprisingly, it was a little bit difficult for him facing off against major league pitching since the AFL was basically the highest competition that he had seen. Spent last season in between low A and high A, and so not exactly the most advanced competition that he's faced. Still, very good hitter. Still very high hopes for him. Would have loved to seen him hit an absolute bomb off of somebody in spring training. But alas, we did not see that at big league camp. But there was one interesting part of the Rangers PR tweet that kind of made me turn my head just a little bit when they said it. The last sentence of their tweet from March 5th about roster transactions, they said, quote, Texas now has 64 players in Major League camp, 39 on the 40-man roster, and 25 non-roster invitees. 39 out of 40-man roster spots. Huh. Interesting. It's almost like they're making room for somebody on that 40-man roster. Well, it is. They are making room for somebody. Whether that's a certain left-handed 6'4" starting pitcher who helped the team win a World Series, I don't know. I am not inclined to say. Or maybe it's just adding another minor leaguer to the 40-man roster. We'll see what that ends up being. I don't see them just, having a 40-man roster spot just chilling. This team is too deep and too talented in terms of their farm system and guys who are just on the edge of a 40-man roster being to just leave a 40-man roster spot open. I mean, they lost several guys. They didn't protect Justin Slayton. They had several guys protected or not protected in the Rule 5 draft. So to just have a 40-man roster spot just dangling out there just kind of piques my interest just a little bit. I'm not saying that this is some inside source that the Rangers are going to go sign Montgomery today or tomorrow or what have you, or Blake Snell or whatever other free agent is out there. I'm just saying that kind of piqued my interest just a little bit. But you know who else piqued my interest just a little bit? More than just a little bit. And that's Sebastian Walcott. He was playing in a B game behind Nathan Eovaldi, hitting behind Adolis Garcia on Tuesday, and he was really turning some heads. The kid is 17 years old, turns 18, I believe, sometime this week, and he had an absolutely phenomenal season last year. A pretty consensus, just about every prospect list I've seen has had him as the Rangers' third best prospect, my list included. I had him behind Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford, and a decent chunk behind those guys because, again, those guys are amazing and they're right on the doorstep of the big league level. I had him ahead of my top pitcher in Brock Porter, and it was pretty sizably the number 3 prospect in this group, but he really is so incredibly impressive. A kid that's, I believe, 6'4". He is a very big boy for the teenage son, playing shortstop behind Nathan Eovaldi, and he even impressed Nathan Eovaldi. The guy's loudest tool by far is an absolute heat-seeking missile launcher of a right arm. He's also got incredible raw power, and he is pretty big, and he might not end up sticking at shortstop, but the Rangers definitely going to keep him there as long as they can. And he earned some praise from not just from Nathan Eovaldi, who said he was really impressive back there and had a really nice arm, but also from Bruce Bochy, who was very impressed by the kid's demeanor, very impressed by how he handled himself at such an advanced age, or at such a young age, playing against advanced competition, and saying that, nope, this kid's just, he looks like he's ready to be there. I mean, that is incredibly high praise from Bruce Bochy and from Nathan Eovaldi. And hitting behind El Bombi in the lineup, that might be something we see in the future. Maybe this is the guy who eventually takes over in right field for El Bombi, who's got a cannon like El Bombi if he doesn't stick at shortstop. Or maybe he's the guy who ends up moving Corey Seager off shortstop. There is a lot of hope on this kid. He is still very young, very raw, but turning heads at such a young age. At what he's done so far already at his age and making it to high A as a 17-year-old. Granted, the results weren't the most impressive, but still, the fact that the Rangers felt confident enough to jump him all the way over low A, all the way up to high A Hickory. I don't know if he starts the season there. That would be a very, very aggressive assignment. Still a lot of swing and miss in his game. Still a lot of questions. Still very far off from the big leagues. But the kid is really turning some heads. His raw tools are very impressive, and the ceiling is astronomical with that youngster. Now, let's talk about the bullpen. The Rangers had one of the worst bullpens in all of baseball last year, and there are quite a few intriguing options to help make it better this year. Obviously, the big signings of David Robertson and Kirby Yates, those are the headline grabbers. I feel like I feel pretty confident in saying that Jose Leclerc is eventually going to win that closer job. He hasn't been outright assigned it by Bruce Bochy, but just with what he did in the playoffs last year, and in terms of the raw stuff, I think that Jose Leclerc is definitely up there, and the confidence in himself to go out there in the ninth inning, be consistent, and get the job done, I think that he has got what it takes. But I have been very, very impressed by Kirby Yates and some of the stuff that he has been saying in camp and the performances that he's put up, the strikeout numbers that he's already doing, and the fact that he's not a guy, he is older, but he's not a guy who's ever relied a lot on premium velocity, premium movement on his stuff. He has relied on commanding his pitches, pitchability, and that's something that doesn't go away with age. And so last year, he said, coming off of all of those injuries, it'd been a while since he's had a fully healthy season. And the last fully healthy season that he'd had before last year, he was one of the best closers in the game of baseball. And last year, he did walk quite a few more guys than he was used to for his career, did get hit a little bit harder than he was used to in his career. But just giving himself that confidence that, hey, I can still do it. I can still be a major league pitcher. I can still be a pretty darn good one and be effective. I mean, he was on the team that was the best team in all of Major League Baseball during the regular season in the Braves last year. And he was an important member of that bullpen. Now, he wasn't their primary setup guy or their primary closer, but he was an important part of that pen, and he can definitely come in and help bolster this Rangers pen. And another guy who has really been turning heads in camp is Mark Church, the guy who sits 94 to 97 with his fastball. Has got an absolutely disgusting wipeout slider, been a lot more effective at staying in the zone during this spring training. He's got 4 innings under his belt, just 3 strikeouts in those 4 innings, but only 1 walk and only 1 hit. Not a whole lot of traffic on the base pass for him, and the Rangers really see him as a multi-inning reliever. That would be something that the Rangers could definitely use, as they also see Grant Anderson as a guy who could eventually go multiple innings. I mean, we saw him used for multiple innings last year, and in 3 outings so far in spring training, he's got 3 innings under his belt, has not allowed a hit, has not allowed to walk. The only base runner he's allowed is a hit by pitch, and he has struck out 5 in his 3 innings of spring training work. I think that Grant Anderson is really solidifying himself as a member of this pen. I wasn't quite sure about it coming into spring training, but it seems like the Rangers are using him quite a bit already. Also using Brock Burke quite a bit, hoping that he can have a nice bounce back year this year. I'm confident in Burke. I'm wanting to see a little bit more of Antoine Kelly, because I really think he could be a very good member of this bullpen, but we'll see. He might end up starting the year in the minor leagues, but I don't think there's any scenario where he doesn't make his major league debut at some point this season. Coming up, we're talking about Adolis Garcia, what he did last year, why it led to his breakout, and why I think it's time for the league to stop doubting El Bombi. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive with ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On a Friday show, I'll be back and talking about my version 2 of my opening day roster projection. Now, Adolis Garcia is coming off the best season of his career, by far, coming off a World Series run where he was a World Series hero, an ALCS hero, and one of the most dynamic players in all of the most dynamic player in all of Major League Baseball throughout that run in the playoffs. The guy was an absolute monster. He was the clutchest player that we have seen in a long, long time. Him and Corey Seager just coming up massively in that World Series Game 1 and just all throughout the playoffs. The guy was just on another level when it got to the postseason. Like, I just knew he would be. I just knew. If you watched Adolis Garcia for years, like me, you know this guy steps up in the biggest moments. So when he got his first chance to be a postseason player, there was no doubt that he was going to come through for the Rangers and help them win that first World Series title or die trying. The guy was on another level in the postseason. 15 games of the postseason, didn't play in the final couple of games because of that oblique injury, but still rallied the troops and inspired the Rangers to blow out the Diamondbacks in that Game 4 of the World Series. In those 15 games, 68 plate appearances, the man had 8 home runs, a record-setting 22 RBIs, the slash line of 323, 382, 726, and 1108 OPS so far in his career for the postseason. Now, the ALCS is really where he took it to another level, winning the ALCS MVP, hitting 5 home runs against those stinking stupid Houston Astros and burying them in the dirt where they belong. He is now the mayor, the owner, the sole proprietor of the Houston Astros, mayor of Houston. Not that he wants that title, but so very fitting that the man born on Texas Independence Day was the MVP in the first ever playoff edition of the Silver Boot Series. Just a fun little fact for that guy. I mean, 5 home runs and 15 RBIs in a single series. Are you freaking kidding me, Adolis Garcia? Including some of the biggest home runs we've ever seen, some of the clutchest home runs we've ever seen. And even though that Game 5 home run didn't end up winning the game for the Rangers, still a chilling moment. I still get goosebumps whenever I watch that home run, even though I know the outcome of the end of that Game 5 didn't end up in the Rangers' favor. I know how the series ended, and that's what matters most. This guy really took it to the next level last year, and there's basically one big change that led to all of this offensive explosion. A career high in RBIs, a career high in, actually, I believe it was just a career high in home runs, a second All-Star appearance. Let's see if that was actually a career high. Yep, a career high 107 RBIs, 39 home runs, which was 8 more than he'd ever hit in a full season. Did it in just 148 games. A career high on base percentage of 329, career high slugging percentage of 508. I mean, the guy also got MVP votes, finished 14th in MVP voting. Oh, and he won his first Gold Glove ever. But the one thing that led to all of those changes, now he could have won a Gold Glove earlier because he's been a phenomenal defensive outfielder for his entire career with the Rangers. The one thing that led to all of that was just walking just a bit more. But it wasn't just a bit more, it was significantly more. The guy walked a career high 10.3% of his plate appearances. That put him just outside of the top quarter of the league in walks. The next highest year for a full season, not 2020, was 6.1% walk rate. That's a spike of 4.2% of his walk rate, doubled what he did his rookie year of 5.1%. The guy doubled his walk rate, he got more pitches to hit, and therefore he did more damage. The guy has always hit the ball incredibly hard, but expanding the zone and striking out at a high rate have been his bugaboo. And once you get to be age 30, age 28, 29, usually if that's the kind of player you are, that's the kind of player that you stay. There's not a whole lot of late career, especially guys who are late bloomers like Adolis Garcia, didn't really stick as a major league regular until age 28, and that was on the horrendous 2021 Texas Rangers squad, where he did earn his first All-Star appearance, should have won Rookie of the Year, in my very humble, totally unbiased opinion. But he made those changes. He made those changes that hitters don't usually do, of becoming more selective, of being able to take those borderline pitches, and even when you get called strike 3 on a pitch that you thought was outside the zone more often than you feel like you should, he stuck with it, and it paid huge dividends. Now, he didn't walk until in the playoff run until the World Series, but he was still more selective and able to do damage on pitches all over the zone, including taking fastballs to the opposite field, taking that sinker low down the middle that he hit for a walk-off home run in the 11th inning of the World Series off of Castro to the opposite field, a line drive shot in the most majestic home run I've ever seen in my entire life. Actually, tied with Corey Seager. I refuse to pick a favorite of those 2 home runs. But this guy's a postseason legend, and he has been one of the best players in baseball for the last 3 seasons. You look among outfielders in terms of Fangraphs WAR for the last 3 years combined since he's been a starter with the Rangers, he's top 10 in WAR. And the players that he's behind, those are guys you feel pretty good about being in the same company as. Behind Fernando Tatis Jr., Bryce Harper, Brandon Nimmo, Kyle Tucker, Ronald Acuna Jr., Yordan Alvarez, Juan Soto, Mookie Betts, and Aaron Judge. And the thing that I love about Adolis Garcia, of the many things that I love about Adolis Garcia, is that he is not just an offensive force and a 0 in the field or a 0 on the base pass. This is a very complete player. In terms of these overall catch-all metrics from Fangraphs of their base running runs, their offensive value, their defensive value, these other guys that are in the top 10 with him, they are not as complete of players. Some of them, several of them, most of them have negative values, either offensively, defensively, or base running. Actually, none of them have negative offensive value from an outfielder in the top 10 in WAR. But defensively or base running value, almost all of these guys have at least one of those categories where they're a net negative. Outside of Adolis Garcia, the only other player in the top 10 in Fangraphs WAR among outfielders over the last 3 seasons that is a net positive on the base paths, offensively, and in the field. There's only 2 other guys that are in that category. That's Mookie Betts and Fernando Tatis Jr. That's the kind of company this guy is keeping. Yet, you look at some of these projections for him in terms of Baseball Reference and Fangraphs as well, and they think, I don't know if I believe it last year. I don't know if I believe this guy, who's been at least a 3 Fangraphs WAR player for the last 3 seasons, since he's been a regular. Last year, a 4.8 WAR season. One of the best players in baseball in just 148 games, because he did have that injury scare at the end of the season that made him miss a little bit of time. But this guy has been incredibly good, and these changes that he's made, the kind of player that he is, I don't know why everyone keeps expecting this fall off. He is not the same player that the Rangers claimed off of waivers from those St. Louis Cardinals in consideration with a trade from cash considerations. A great deal. Thank you forever to cash considerations. But it's time for people to start believing in Adolis Garcia. It is time for the league in general to respect this guy as one of the stars of this game. That postseason run was his coming out party of, hey, I've been here for a while. I've been pretty darn good. This team's pretty darn good. I am electric. I should be one of the faces of baseball because he is one of the best players in baseball and one of the most charismatic, most fun, most marketable stars that, shocker, Major League Baseball not doing its best to market its own stars. But this guy is projected to have just 31 home runs next year by Fangraphs. It's expected the walk rate to go down to 7.5%. The strikeout rate last year, it was still there. It was still high. He was still in the bottom quarter of the league in terms of bottom 20% in terms of swing and miss rate and the strikeout rate. But that chase rate went from the bottom quarter league to about 42nd percentile, so about average. So he's still swinging missing in the zone and still chasing a little bit, but not nearly as much as he was. And he's working those walks, he's getting better counts, and he is doing absolutely massive damage as one of the best offensive players in the league and one of the most complete players in the league. This is the expectation. This is the norm for Adolis Garcia. And in terms of what he needs to do in 2024 to, stay at this level, just keep doing what he did last year. Doesn't need to do anything different than what he did during the regular season last year. Keep that walk rate high. Keep hitting absolutely massive taters. He'll probably have a few more games off of his feet to just DH this year since the Rangers have incredible outfield depth. They'll probably put Evan Carter in right field for a few games, or maybe it'll be Leody, or maybe it'll be Wyatt Langford, just to get him off his feet, to keep him healthier for the long haul. They're still slow playing him through this spring training. Today he is finally playing in his first spring training A game as the DH. But man, Adolis Garcia, that breakout last year, it is no flash in the pan. This is who this man is now. He is one of the best players in all of Major League Baseball. And by God, it's about time people start respecting him and treating him like one of those elite players. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.